Okay, this is some information about what we call the space brothers or extraterrestrial friends that look like us, and some of them can also walk among us without being recognized. Some are a bit taller and some are a bit smaller than us. But human form is universal and are found on many planets. There are also extraterrestrials that don't look like us, but this is about our human-like older friends, space friends. And it's a principle like an older sibling watch a younger. So we are watched by civilizations that are much highly developed, both spiritually and technologically. And this is a bit about who they are and what they contribute with and why they don't show themselves more to us. Okay, why are they here? This is interesting information given by Wendell Stevens about his conclusions that he came in 2006 once this interview was done. He died in 2010. And his understanding is, like it's written here, that when a planet reaches a certain stage in its evolutionary development, such when it's ready for life, organic life, then it gives out a call that other civilizations in the universe catches, and they come and help to organize life, to seed life on a new planet. So it's not a random event, it's a planned event. And the next time the planet gives out the signal is when the different kingdoms are established. First the mineral kingdom, and then the plant kingdom, like the organic life, like I said. And then the next kingdom upon the plant kingdom is the animal kingdom. And then when the fourth kingdom is going to be established, then the planet gives out the call again, and humankind, the mankind, is seeded by other civilizations. And they create their own on a much higher, lower level that suits this planet's development. The next time, the third time the planet gives out the call is where we are at the moment. When a planet is in great distress and is in great need of assistance and help, like we are today. Especially since 1945, when we started using atomic weapons and blowing atomic bombs. And mankind, the various race types is from, according to Venusian called Omnek, and the yellow race come from Mars, the red from Saturn, the white European from Venus, and the black from Jupiter. Other extraterrestrials claim the same, that we are seeded from outside, from older civilizations, and they vary a bit about who are the creators of mankind. Some slight variations of the explanations that they give them. But the idea is that there is no missing link because we don't come from the apes. The first nuclear test in 1946, when the US started to test atomic bombs in the Pacific, in the Bikini Island, they had tests in July 1946. A week after the first test, hundreds of what's called ghost rockets, strange meteor-like objects, came over Sweden, Scandinavia, especially Sweden. Hundreds of them were reported in 1 day, 2 days, a week after the first test nuclear bomb was. And later in July 1946, there was another test in the Pacific, and the same thing happened. About a week after, another bunch of ghost rockets, hundreds of them, came over Sweden. And this is a phenomenon created by an extraterrestrial craft, which is meteor-like but much slower than a meteor. going to tell a little bit more about that. Another thing that our extraterrestrial friends does to warn us is that they place their craft, their spaceships, over nuclear weapon sites and make the rockets non-functional. They cannot use them. They cannot be. So the mechanism is temporarily set, destroyed, or does not function, and that can be corrected, of course. They don't temporarily. This also temporary thing is not permanent. But in this way, they say you are playing with fire. And there's been news releases that also mainstream media has told us about where military people come forward and say this has happened. And this is nothing just happened at the Malmström in the 60s. This has happened again and again and up till now. But media usually don't report it. Here we see some examples of this ghost rocket phenomenon taken from various places around the world. And what the US has been planning is to use $8 trillion from this year until 2013 and about the 10 year for modernizing their nuclear weapons. There was used to turn old bombs into all-purpose weapons. And there is also a very dangerous cleanup operation going on at the Fukushima nuclear plant that was destroyed by the tsunami, and which is very hazardous. So recently, in last year or so, there has been many ghost rockets over Norway, and they say it's seldom fireball, and it's very unusual phenomenon that have this meteors, like they come once or twice a year, and then they come once a day, the next day another, the next week another, and the media sometimes report them also. So we see that's a warning sign to us, because when where the nuclear weapons were developed after the World War, the Second World War in 1947, in New Mexico there were lots of these green fireballs, and we also saw, as I said, after they tested, they made these nuclear tests, these ghost rockets came, because they do this to warn us, and we need repeated warnings, and we don't heed them. We're on a very destructive course. Here we see one of the most famous events in the UFO history, history of the extraterrestrials. There was the famous flyover in Washington, D.C. on the 19th and the 26th of July 1957. There a fleet of extraterrestrial spacecraft came over the Capitol in Washington. And it was photos. This is the a real photo, a real film taken at that time. What our friends did, they warned us, because a week or so before the first flyover, a man called George Van Tassel, he was a contact person, a contactee for extraterrestrials, and he had this Giant Rock UFO convention every year in Landers in California. And he had been told by his space friends that if the US continues developing the hydrogen bomb, which we have warned them against doing, to tamper with one of the building blocks of the universe, must not be done. If they continue to do that, we will make a demonstration, a flyover. So that's the reason why this massive flyover in Washington was done. It was a warning to us. But unfortunately, we didn't heed the warning, and in the 31st of October 1952, the first hydrogen bomb was detonated. Another new approach came in 1957 when Bailey and Torr, a Venusian, stayed in the Pentagon and tried to tell Eisenhower to stop, and the U.S. administration to stop the development of the development of atomic weapons. To stop all use of atomic weapons and to get rid of all of them, and say there was a prerequisite for getting help from them. They could help us solve all problems here, like poverty, make a better civilization for everybody, but they said you must not use atomic, stop using atomic nuclear weapons, and also nuclear power stations has to, because it's a dangerous form of energy which is very, very toxic and make pollution that we cannot measure. This other photo here is from Orton, a Venusian that came out of his spaceship and greeted a contact person called George Adamski in 1952. He came out of his spaceship that landed in the California desert, and he was there was several people there who wrote written affidavits that this was a real happening. They swore that this was correct. Space Brothers, all help to mankind, to this planet, is a cooperative effort from several extraterrestrial races. About 7 or 8 of them cooperate. This is information from a Swedish man called Sten Lindgren, which is a very has many years had contact with the Nordics, a contactee. And these individuals, they come both from planets in our solar system, like Mars, Saturn, and Ganymede. It's one of Jupiter's moons that has been colonized from a civilization that originally came from the star system Orion. And they also come from other solar system and galaxies. And some of them are higher on blonde and higher than us, up to 4 meters tall. And others are only 40, 50 centimeters tall. And some of them are the same height as us and can go among us. And some come from our dimension, and some are interdimensional. They come from other dimensions and go in, step down the vibration and come into our world. Usually not themselves. They use the unmanned craft because it's a strain on the person's body, organism, to step down the energy and to be among us. If you are interdimensional, if you belong to interdimensional civilization. The most widespread and biggest help and aid program from extraterrestrials is the Mission Rama, it's called. It has been going on for many years, and mostly in Spanish countries, up to 20 countries. And 49 extraterrestrial guides, which are called, they come from Venus, Ganymede, Serpian 2 in the constellation Canis Majoris, and Apu in Alpha Centauri. And it all started with the Sixto Paz brothers, Sixto Paz Wells and his brother Carlos in Peru, in Lima, outside Lima, in Chilca. It's a desert area there, in 1974. And Rama is Ra is the sun, and Ma is the earth, and the H is humanity. It's sun, enlightenment, and aid, help for us. And here we see this 3 of these guides in Mission Rama guides. And the next clip we are going to see here is a short video clip where Sixto Paz Wells guides a group of media people, take them on a bus trip to what is called a guided, program sighting, where he has already had made contact and had an agreement with his extraterrestrial friends that they should show up at that time and at that place. And then the media people go to that place where the sighting is going to take place, and they discuss among them each other, and they wait till the darkness comes, and then the spaceships appear. And here we see also a ceremony they do a kind of invocation to make our Spence friends aware of their being there. This happens in the 1980s, in the end of 1980s. So we see that in South America and other parts of countries, parts of the world, this extraterrestrial contacts is much more widespread than in Europe and the US. And here they explain what they have seen and how it all looked to them when the spaceships came in the evening. And here we see also they are there coming and placing their spacecraft over the area there. And here is Sixto Pascuals being interviewed. So we see this is light years ahead of Europe and and the US, where this is absolutely banned information, which is not given in any media. No people in Europe have heard about these events that are taking place, the program sightings, where the media gets a demonstration and proof of extraterrestrial activity. And they take pictures, and they see, and they tell their own media when they come home, and they break stories for their own media. So this is hundreds, thousands of people are informed this way, millions of people maybe, about this. Another very interesting approach from our friends from space happened in Italy from 1957 to 1978. It was the French ship W56 is called. And the extraterrestrials there, they had huge bases under the Adriatic Ocean, sea, where their technology had developed bases that were hundreds of meters to 300 meters in height and many kilometers long. And this photo is taken from an extraterrestrial that stood outside the entrance from one of these underground bases, and they called him Kenio, and he is about 3 meters tall. You can see, compare by the growth of the bush at the right side. They have tried to estimate his height, and they say it's at least 3 meters tall. And this is from the photo at the right is another extraterrestrial from the French ship W56. And what they said, the extraterrestrials there, they said that you have to uphold the energy, what we call ureda. It's the energy of love and friendship and togetherness and unity. And if you uphold that among you, as our friends, 300 honorary Italians from generals to priests to honorary laborers, they had contact with these extraterrestrials. And they said for this to work, you have to uphold this energy between you. And what happened in this when this project finished was that there was a great crashes, and there were discords and fights among the Earth people that were contacted. And this energy that they said had to be there was lessened, was strife and discords. And what happened then was that an very negative extraterrestrial race called CTR, they saw the possibility to infiltrate and to destroy this project. And there was a kind of war between this E-56 extraterrestrials and the CTR, and then they had to leave their bases, and the project was terminated. But it also has been in other countries, like in Chile, in an island called Patagonia. One of the people who were contacted there was called a man called Ernesto Fuentes. He had lung cancer, which was incurable. He had a short time to live. And he was brought to the base in Patagonia and stayed there for 4 days, and was completely cured of his lung cancer. And he still lives today. This was several years ago. So they can help us in various ways. They are much more advanced than us. Some of them are also among us. There is a Venusian here called Omnek Onek, and there is a man from Tauseti called Jerry Wills. Two extraterrestrials that have come proved by their in their various ways that they are real, that there's nothing that make up. Jerry Wills, one of the things with him was that his parents could not have children. It was impossible for them, it turned out. And he was told also by the people from Tauseti that came and visited him that you are come from us. You are placed here as one of the ways we want to help this world is we place persons from other civilizations here that are here to help us and guide us. And Jerry Wilson says that this planet will undergo a great change in the near future, which will have its price, but it will make possible for mankind to survive, and the world will turn out to be a better world for everybody when this change has taken place. And he is here as a helper in this process that's that's before us. And the characteristics of this our space friend is that they do surveillance. They try to help and aid civilizations that are on a lower level of development, and especially civilizations where we have a much too large gap between the technological development, we have much too dangerous weapons, and the spiritual developments where we are quite primitive and we very often use weapons and war to solve problems instead of dialogue and negotiations. So they neutralizes some of the radioactive waste, also some of the chemtrails which we make to influence the geoengineering which is going on, which is very dangerous things to do and which make the havoc in the climate. They also neutralizes some of the toxins that we intentionally spray, like barium, aluminium particles to reflect the sunlight, to try to minimize the global warming. It's a very bad thing to do. Which is nobody knows what consequences it will have. They also patrol a whole solar system, and they can also destroy with their ray comets and disintegrate comets that could hit our planet and be dangerous for us. They also inspect the fault lines where the tectonic plates are moving and where there can be earthquakes. And they're also able with that technology to lessen the impact of earthquakes and also limit the activity of volcanoes, like we see here in this short clip from Mexico. Here we see from the news that an extraterrestrial craft goes into the volcano called Popocatépetl, which lies near Mexico City. And Mexico City is a city where there are over 20 million people, and if that volcano is spewing out this ashes and lava, it will be very, very bad, and millions of people will die. So when this periods when this volcano is very active, they goes into the volcano and limits the activity in the volcano to make it to hinder a blowout. There's a very important principle governing all activity of these extraterrestrial civilizations. And this is the law of free will. That means the principle of non-interference. We must be able to make reasonable choices and decisions by ourselves and do things that are for the good of all. And nobody comes and saves us from ourselves. We have to save ourselves. But we need some help and assistance to come out of the quagmire we are in today. And they are here to assist us and help us, if we want to have their assistance. It's up to us. They will not take away our responsibility to solve the problems with the environment and to distribute the resources that this planet has, so everybody can have a decent life. We have to do that. So they have to they oversee and help. They say it's like if we try to force our system or our way on you, it will be like a rosebud that is not allowed to come and to bloom by itself, but are forced to open, like using force. Another very important law is the law of correspondences. That means that the less the media inform and the stronger the cover-up, the more our friends from space must stay behind the scenes. Therefore, we decide whether they can come forward, not them. It's up to us. And we can show some examples now of this principle, how it functions in the real world. In Mexico in March 2004, these pilots witnessed, on radar also it was registered, that 7 objects placed themselves around the plane as they were flying and followed the airplane. Flew together with the airplane. And if this had happened in Europe, it would be a classified thing that they were debriefed and not spoken, not very strictly told not to talk about to anybody. And this would be a secret thing that nobody was able to hear about. But what happens in Mexico was that defense minister, which is called Clemente Vega, he held a news conference in May 2004 together with a ufologist called Jimmy Maussan, one of the world's most famous ufologists. So they went to the media and everybody in Mexico was informed that this had taken place. This was told to the public. What happened then was that on Guadalajara, in a city in Mexico, there was a flyover with hundreds of spaceships on the 10th of June. And since then, this change happened in March. After this thing happened in March, they went public with this, there was very common, very frequent flyovers, and as they see fleets of spaceships over Mexican cities. Happened again and again, and they have then they have a special TV program once in a week, every Sunday, where they have the newest sightings reported, and people, they call us vigilantes. People are on high alert and report everything that happens, and media tells people about it. It's not a secret thing. Therefore, our space friends can show themselves, because they have not. We don't place a lid on it like US have done, and all NATO countries in Europe. Another example was that on the 24th of March 2011, the Norwegian main airport called Gardermoen was closed for 1 hour, and all news media in Norway had different explanations. They called a hang glider-like object, unknown hang glider. It was an unknown vehicle. It was a faulty plane. They had all kinds of explanations. All media had different explanations, and what this object was that made every plane stay on the ground for 1 hour. And when the same thing happened the year before over the Hangzhou airport in China, we had photos of the spacecraft there. You can see it here, hanging over there. Because in China there's much more openness about extraterrestrial visitations than we are in our part of the world, in Europe and US. There are scientists in China have formed groups and where they discuss this, and it's also much more openness about it than here. So therefore, photo comes. No, in Norway, just bullshit explanations from various media. Another part of the helping project for such very important part of the aid and help our friends gives us is the crop formations. Because all crop formations, the genuine ones, are placed on what we call the ley line network. And in a person, you have the meridians, like the energy circulates in our bodies, and we have the acupuncture point along the meridians, acupuncture system. And the good acupuncturists can, by placing a needle in the correct point, create or instigate beneficial changes that the person feels on all levels, mentally, emotionally, and physically. And by placing the crop formation on the node point where these ley lines cross each other, the energy goes into the ley line system by a counterclockwise lay of the crops. This is energy going inwards, and the clockwise lay, this way, is energy going outwards. But very often it's counterclockwise lay in the crop formation, because the energy goes into the ley line system, and that has a beneficial effect on all consciousness and all life on all places around the planet, because this is a worldwide energy circulation system, like the energy circulates in our body, circulates in Mother Earth. So this is an important thing for help for us. Since 2009, there are our ET friends, extraterrestrial friends, has placed 4 star-like objects in our Earth's atmosphere. They look like stars, but they are much more brighter, and they can show them. You can see them through the sky when it's overcast, through the clouds, I mean, and we can also see them when it's almost broad daylight. And they move also more rapid than ordinary stars. And one of them often can be seen around the moon, especially at the full moon, like a bright ball of light near the moon. One day it can be on one side of the moon, and the other day on the one side, and the other side next day. So this is a sign. This is like the Bethlehem star came 2,000 years ago. It was a spacecraft that placed itself over where Jesus was born. Now these spacecrafts are here as star-like spacecrafts and herald the emergence of a new spiritual teacher called Maitreya, the world teacher. And they will be here and be seen until the day of declaration, when he comes forward and tell the world who he is. So many people have noticed them and wondered what these objects are, because they have never been there before. They started coming in 2009. But who is behind the cover-up? Why is no media telling us about these things? Well, intelligence agencies like the NSA and CIA and their partners in all countries have a part to play in this. And the financial, the big pharma, big oil, the energy industry as a whole, the producers of arms, they are not interested in having the status quo disturbed and their position weakened. Because extraterrestrial spacecraft don't use oil and don't use fossil fuels. So here we have new types of energy which will make us, we will not need oil in motors. We will have much more better systems, which already have been developed, but the big oil has taken it out of the market and destroyed the possibilities for competitors. And mainstream media have been infiltrated and controlled both by these big financial, these strong groups like oil industry, for example. And also there's another factor is that politicians want to be the ones that government wants to be the ones that knows and that people that governs the country and that people listen to, and they don't know who's coming and why they're coming. They cannot tell anything to their public about it, so they don't want anybody to know. They want to stay in authority. And like the CEO from Disney, Michael Eisner, said when he introduced the film called Alien Encounters from New Tomorrowland, he says, "For governments who wish to uphold their authority, extraterrestrial contact is pure dynamite." And that's one of the reasons this is a non-issue in the mainstream media. The Space Brothers, they see the good possibility that we are able to create a better civilization, which has a different type of technology than we use today, and renewable energy available to all, free. And the technology from extraterrestrials are so advanced that it can neutralize all radioactivity and pollution and environmental pollution. But we have to do the changes. We are nothing is forced upon us, like I said. But the key to get these changes are spiritual awakening. And I want to quote saying from extraterrestrials that came from the planet Coma Berenices and was given to a contactee called Paul Villa. And they say, "Love is the most powerful force in the universe, holding everything together. Cooperation, unity and goodwill. If used correctly, it can transform the hearts of men and make them into beings of light and peace. When the laws of love rules the minds of men of earth, then the people of other worlds will come in great numbers and share with us their advanced sciences, living among us as friends and brothers in lasting peace, as they do on many other worlds." Spiritual development means that the person becomes less angry, self-conscious, less competitive, more kind, helpful, and less selfish, more unselfish. And to be able to develop spiritually, there are two levels of evolution of everybody. And one of these levels is service, where you do good deeds because it's a good thing to do, not for people can pat you on the back or give you praise. And the other is meditation, especially a very potent form of meditation called transmission meditation, which steps down energy coming from our spiritual hierarchy of the masters of wisdom, which they are called, and are stepped down by the participants in this meditation group through their energy centers or chakras. And then this energy goes into the world and has a very beneficial effect on our our consciousness. Okay, that was it. Thank you.